Thank you. So maybe just following up along that same line of question, whether it's for insurance companies or for financial institutions more generally, what are the sources of information that they might have had? We know the RCMP is one source of information. What would be other sources of information under the powers granted that they could action any kind of freezing of accounts or suspension of insurance on?
Yes, as I was mentioning, so it was either, as you just mentioned, through the RCMP, but they could also use internal information using their software, their algorithm, to see whether there was any activities that were related to these blockades. But we're not privy to what they found, and they would vet the information. And I'm sure if they had questions, they could have maybe contact with the RCMP, and the decision was theirs to make if they wanted to freeze the account.
Okay. And so when that happens, are people notified that that a freezing of an account that's occurred in their case is a consequence of the mandate under the Emergencies Act?
I don't know whether the financial institutions advised their clients. I'm not sure if anything was posted, but certainly I believe in the media, it was clear that this was an potential impact should somebody want to finance illegal activities.
So certainly, I do think it was publicly communicated in advance that this could happen. But I mean, in the event that it does happen, are people told that their account is frozen as a consequence of the emergency orders, or are they left to wonder? What right do people have to know whether what's happening to them is a consequence of emergency orders or whether it's happening under some other kind of authority?
Yes, I do not know if any such notice were provided. So if somebody's account is suspended, whether because of the order or other reasons, or other court orders, as we know, the Ontario Superior Court also issued an order to freeze accounts. So as to whether an individual would know why their account was frozen, I do not know if any notices were provided. I'm not.
Okay. So there's no obligation to provide such a notice coming from the government or the emergency orders. If there were, it would be a result of the internal policy of the organization that froze the account or suspended the insurance.
That is accurate.
Okay. Is it possible for government to require financial institutions who have frozen accounts under these authorities to require those institutions to offer such a notice?
I presume it could be done legislatively. I may want to turn to my colleague Manuel. I've not done that research. I don't know if there's any more specific answer that Manuel Dussault can provide in this regard.
Well, it's just thank you for your question. It's just an initial reaction. I agree it might be possible, but it's something we'd have to look at.
Okay. I mean, I think that the public interest value in that kind of policy would be that there does seem to be confusion about why some people's accounts are being frozen right now. There's the appearance that some folks feel that their accounts are being frozen as a result of the emergency orders. In some cases, that does not cohere with what we're hearing from government. A requirement that when those accounts are frozen as a consequence of the institutions fulfilling their obligations under the emergency orders, that would help people know in a very kind of crystal clear way whether the emergency orders resulted in their account being frozen or whether it was something else. So I do think that's something for us to be considering as a committee, and I hope that officials might consider taking back to government, because that's one relatively straightforward way that I think we could provide a lot of clarity for Canadians who are wondering. I am curious to know what the smallest denomination of donation or contribution has resulted in a freezing of an account so far.
I would not be able to provide you that answer. The information was strictly exchanged between law enforcement, the RCMP, and the banks.
Is that something it would be reasonable to expect the RCMP to know?
Well, I mean, if the RCMP exchange information with a bank. As you saw under Section 5 of the order, there was a duty to disclose to the RCMP or CSIS. I do not know if they have the details of the amounts. I was not privy to the information that was shared. So I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay. I'm looking to the chair just to know how I'm doing in terms of time.
You got about a minute, just under a minute.
Okay. So we would be looking to the RCMP for information on how low the threshold is. I mean, I think seems to me that there are maybe two elements to the financial measures here, and I'm interested for your input on this. One clearly was before the streets in Ottawa were cleared, this was meant to create a tool to put pressure on people to leave the occupied area and to go home. Is that the only purpose of the financial measures, or is there also some follow-up around some of the organizers and groups and activities that they may have been involved in that represent a more ongoing threat to national security?
Short answer, please.
From my perspective, it was solely to ensure that people stop funding illegal activities.